Hey everybody, Trendy John here from Simpler Trading. So quickly, I want to go over Tesla. It seems to be a very popular name, not only in social media, but just from a trading standpoint. So as a disclaimer, I am a long-term investor. Been adding into this pullback, got to about 60% allocation, and just want to give you an idea of what I'm looking at. So far, prices come back into the demand zone. You guys can see we had this beautiful rally base rally, very big candle out of here. So suggesting that we have buyers inside the zone and we're starting to see some sort of relief bounce. So I want to talk about a relief bounce really quickly. Basically, what we can do is we can come up to the pivot high here, pull down to the pivot low and get an idea where prices could move to. You'll notice that my relief bounce targets come in just before the 38.2 and just around the 50. Now, the reason why is because right here underneath there is a blue line that is one of my trendy edges. So I want to make sure I'm, looking for targets right before we get to the 38.2. So historical, looking at the past, looking at the 38.2, anytime we're in a down move like this, and if we were to hit a demand zone, we're looking for a bounce back into 23.6 to 38.2%. I'm giving it a little bit more there to the upside on the 50, but note that the 23.6 comes in or around, and let's pull some of this off here, around my past trendy edge, which comes in around 275. So prices did close out at 248.71, and their aftermarket, they were close to 250. Everybody is focusing on the fact, and I understand why, if we look at the weekly and we come over here, prices were down. You guys can see here, it looks like 9 weeks. Let's see if we closed up underneath there. Yeah, 9 weeks down. So long time, long duration to the downside. But if you go back and you look at Tesla, it really sucks during the February, March timeframe. Just go back and look at the past. Every year seems to be some sort of dramatic rationale for the stock to pull to the downside. I'm not saying that it's not noteworthy of what's going on, but at the same time, for me, the catalyst, whatever the catalyst is the reason for the push to the downside into demand. Now, if trading were easy, they'd be talking, and saying things like, hey, you have to buy today's dip. But instead, you're getting all sorts of overload, all sorts of noise while prices are pushing down into a demand zone. And that is normal. Back to the day when Elon threw a beanbag through the driver's side or the passenger side door window, and they were supposed to be bulletproof or something like that, and stocks tanked right afterwards. How about when Elon got on, he was being interviewed and had something to say about CEOs of different companies. And there's always drama, is my point. And in my opinion, the drama right now, you can see it all over. And it is a reason, again, to push price down into demand. So, again, going back to the idea, if trading were easy, everybody would be telling you to go long here. In or on news channels and so forth, but that's not how the market works. So when it comes to supply and demand, the idea is to identify structure that is identified here, all right, and then I line myself up with that structure. And the idea is that, you know, markets will come in, buyers will come in, and then we'll start to see some sort of reprieve in the name. Maybe perhaps some more positive issues, if you will, coming out to kind of help us feel a little bit more confident as retail traders, right? But I don't rely on news. I rely on price action. So again, identifying the demand zone. The news is what pushed price down into here, and this is peak fear. And if you think about the idea that it is a transfer of wealth from the impatient to the patient, or in my opinion, to the bigger money, right? When the noise is super, super loud, this is a great opportunity for me to be at about 60% allocation. And I did add in this zone here But again, 60%. The reason why is because if things were to continue to the downside, take out these lows, there is potential we see the 200, 202 level down to 178. And honestly, there's perhaps the opportunity to see 115. So I'm trying to be really careful on my last 40% of adding because I don't want to get too overly, I guess, confident that we're going to, this will be the low. So again, the relief bounce puts us up towards these levels, any line to the upside. Just be careful when we get up there that you could see a pretty big rejection. And matter of fact, if I just take the last 2 quarters, or sorry, the 2 months and look here, and I were to add this, that means that 258, 282, and 300 basically are going to be targets based off of the last 2 months down, and also areas where we can see a lot of resistance. Because I'm a long term investor in this, again, I'm just allocating when it comes to puts and calls. Then we'll use, smaller time frames to quickly get in and out of trades, sell puts, buy calls, buy puts, those type of scenarios. But again, this is the bigger picture for me. I do believe, and I've seen already that we're getting the relief bounce that I wanted to see out of here, but it's really not a big deal unless we start to get over that $300 level. Until then, I still expect relief bounces sideways to down until we can at least get over the 300 level. And then from peak, let's say to low, this entire down range or down trend that we're having is not broken and not bullish until we can get above the golden Fibonacci at 384.84. So, and we don't need to break it down into cents, but just say the 385 level is the biggest level that we have in Tesla. And then the second biggest level to the downside is going to be 178 to 115. So for me personally, if I wanted to hedge this position, I would be looking at hedging it with put debits all the way into here. Now, I do have some $100 puts for January 2026 that, fluctuate from anywhere from 70 to 100% up. And again, that's a smaller position. And to be quite transparent, even if it were to go to 100, it's not going to make up for the loss that I have and will have in Tesla if we were to get down there. So the idea for me is if we do bounce pretty hard up towards this relief bounce area in here towards the 300 level, I'm going to go ahead and buy some more put debit spreads to further down into some of these levels that I was just going over with you. Again, in order for traders in these type of positions that are seeing some sort of pullback or dramatic pullback, I would really encourage you to go back and study. I did the same thing in 2024. I was buying the dip here, and it was just a different catalyst, and it was terrible. And everybody, was saying, "Hey, it's not. I would never touch this stock. There's better stocks out there." And listen, I agree with you and I don't agree with you. Depending on your approach, if you're allocating slowly, it's not a big deal. It really isn't. Not for me, it's not a big deal. For others who have short-term type mindset for returns, this is not the type of trade. You know, when you're slowly scaling into a position. If you're like me and you understand your plan, then it's all good, right? From a short-term perspective, I would probably concentrate on understanding that we are in a demand zone, but we're also underneath a lot of different resistance levels. And so the take to the upside is kind of short lived. And again, like I said, bigger levels are very important. Just understand if we go back again, just study. That's what I would say is study in the beginning of the year. Here's back in 2022, looking at February. It's not very bullish in these months. And I haven't quite went back all the way to 21, but you can see it's the same thing. This is February, this is March time frame, and it gets really, you know, it gets knocked out here. And so not a great look, and but it's the same thing over and over. Now, will there be a year where February, March, April, May, June, July, keeps going down? and look something like this, sure, it could be this year. But again, this is why long term, if that's your focus, you got to have a plan. You got to understand what that plan is. You got to stick to your plan. All right. So again, guys, I hope these levels help you out. They helped me out last year very, very much. And I do believe that this is a turning point for now, but it's only a relief bounce turning point until we can get up and over at least that level of 300. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Have an amazing day. See you soon.